All right, good evening, everyone. And thanks for being here for the newly reconstituted Active Transportation Committee after we shed almost half our members and picked up 7 new ones. And we'll go around the table shortly and introduce everyone.
We have at least one more person. I don't know if they're gonna make it, but
What's that?
there was at least one more person. I don't know if they're gonna make it.
Okay. Sue's still keeping an eye on the door for us.
I was hoping she.
Yeah. Just so everyone knows, I'm Charlie Loeb. I'm one of the chairs of the new chairs of the committee, and Josh is the other. And Sue, who's staffing the door for us over there, is our immediate past chair who turned out off the committee, but is as always welcome here. Is an influential voice with this committee. Unfortunately, Willow, our usual staff person, got called away on unexpectedly, but Logan is here. Logan, what I believe Willow left you a note.
Oh, yes. Would you like me to read Willow's introduction? Good evening, good evening, everyone. My name is Logan Tellis, and I am the City of Eugene staff representative for this meeting. I have a few reminders and introductory words. I'd like to begin by acknowledging that tonight's meeting is being held on Kalapuya Ilihi, the traditional indigenous homeland of the Kalapuya people, whom continue to make contributions in their communities here and across the land we now refer to as Oregon. The purpose of the Active Transportation Committee is 1, to advise the City of Eugene staff and community organizations and partners on the implementation of Eugene's pedestrian and bicycle strategic plan. 2, to represent community and constituent interests in transportation planning decisions. And 3, to provide feedback to staff on projects related to walking and bicycling. Eugene City staff will consider recommendations from the ATC along with input from other members of the public during decision-making processes. Please keep in mind that this meeting is both being recorded and will be posted after the fact on YouTube. I know we normally live stream, but I was having some technical difficulties with it. All written and verbal commentary will be held in the public record. Tonight's meeting will begin with a 15-minute public comment period. The public comment period is an opportunity for individuals to speak to the Active Transportation Committee on transportation-related issues. Each person will have 3 minutes to speak. When it is your time to speak, please give your name, city of residence, and for Eugene residents, your ward or neighborhood.
Right.
If we're ready.
And very good. We have one person in the room signed up to speak. We'll do that first and then go to online if there's someone there. Connie, would you?
No, I was thinking about the fact that I bring up the fact that each month we have, people killed, and a number injured, both pedestrians and bicyclists. And I kept thinking this month, more about what are the circumstances around these people and how many of them, are themselves drunk or impaired in some way or mentally impaired. How many are in various places on the street or sidewalk? And I was thinking I'd like to know more, since we seem to be piling this up month after month and year after year. So many people getting hit with pedestrians and bicyclists. I wondered if there is anyone that's keeping a more detailed statistic of the circumstances of each of these impacts and crashes. So that was just my thought, as I was thinking, oh my God, here we go again, So anyway, and we'll think about those people and why we're here.
Do you mind if I?
Yeah, Logan, please respond.
So just something I'll say to everyone is the City of Eugene is currently working on updating our Vision Zero action plan, which does compile and provide statistics on all of our fatal and serious injury crashes. Our old action plan, the data that went into it was from 2007 to 2015. So this data update is going to make it much more current. ODOT has published data through 2022. And that should be ready really soon. Willow and I are just working on making the, draft, kind of integrating the new statistics into the InDesign file for the old Vision Zero action plan. And once we have that draft together, we're going to come present it to you guys and get feedback as well as the broader community.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Could I have a question with that? Is that going to address, like, I know the one recently, which I think was yesterday, the news said dark clothing, no light, all of that. And do they get into that much detail in compiling the?
The ODOT
Statistics.
crash statistics does include a lot of detail, and
Okay.
there's a lot of ways we can break out the data. And so
Okay.
we do look at things like lighting status, time of day, like all types of variables, and a lot of that information is gonna be in the Vision Zero action plan.
These will be
Thank-
accessible for the general public.
Yep.
All right, thanks Logan and thanks Connie. And Logan, I see Mary Christensen's online. Is anyone indicating an interest in speaking from the Zoom call?
Lucy's there as well. Yeah, someone does.
Go ahead, whoever raised your hand, feel free to. Do I need to unmute them? Oh, hang on one moment. There we go. Noah, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Hello. I'm sorry, I missed the first few minutes, so I hope I am not duplicating anything. But I just pulled down all of the Eugene Police Department dispatch logs and all of the Eugene Springfield Fire and EMS call logs. I was doing a little bit of data analysis on them and wanted to share what I found for 2024. These are not as detailed as the information that Logan was talking about, but they are simply counts of particular types of incidents. Eugene Police Department had 89 vehicle bike crash dispatch logs versus a mean of 76. Sorry, the data for this goes back to 2013. 166 vehicle pedestrian calls versus a historical mean of 110. And 1437 vehicle only crash versus a historical mean of 1254. EMS had similar, so it's covering a different region, and some of these are duplicate with the police department calls, but 140 vehicle bike versus a historical mean of 125, 277 vehicle pedestrian versus a historical mean of 210. The only one that is lower than the historical mean is vehicles only 3,028 versus a historical mean of 3,333. I know our population is going up. It's not going up as far as these numbers are. I know that these are just calls, so it may or may not be injuries. But I want you to imagine every time there's a crash serious enough to involve a police or fire call, that is a significant moment in someone's life. So I would say it doesn't look like we're doing great, and just wanted to share those numbers. Thanks.
You know, that is sobering, and I assume the new Vision Zero report will also
Yeah.
lay that out.
Very exciting.
Was there anyone else online who had a hand raised? Doesn't look like it. I see Lucy's online, who is a member of the committee here, and Mary's just turned off the committee as well, as Sue was in the audience. Well, there's no more public comment. We'll move on with the rest of the agenda. And because it's the first meeting of the year, and we probably need to introduce everyone, because I don't think everyone who's in this room has been here with the committee before. And the first part of the meeting will just, in a sense, be, I guess, introducing each other and introducing where we've been and how the committee is likely to work going forward into 2025. And I thought we would, just take turns going around and giving a couple of key pieces of information, hopefully revealing information about ourselves. name, neighborhood, the modes of active transportation you use. And then, just answer a question about what, if you could just make one change, as I phrased it here, if you had a magic wand that you could wave and fix one single problem or in just one single way improve active transportation in Eugene, whether it's something big that affects the whole city or something small that might just affect you or a particular intersection, what would it be? What would you do? And I brought as a kind of a speaking stick passed around an actual wand my daughter carved during the pandemic when she was bored at home. And so you can waive this if you want, if you think it will help. But I will at least pass it around and I'll start. And my name's Charlie Loeb and I'm from the South Eugene neighborhood. And I'm primarily a cyclist and a pedestrian when it comes to active transportation. And if I could wave my magic wand and change one thing, it would be pretty parochial. I would put in a protected bikeway up Fox Hollow from East Amazon, at least as far as Donald, with a protected pedestrian or separated pedestrian and bike path from there all the way up to the Fox Hollow trailhead, if I could. And with that, I will pass it to my left and let Anya introduce herself.
Oh, this is rad. My name's Anya Preston. I use she, her pronouns. This is my first ATC meeting after the introduction meeting last month. I live in the Jefferson West Side neighborhood, like 6.5 miles from here. Moved to Eugene a couple years ago. I primarily bike, walk, run, and I like to get to places to exercise on foot and on bike. I'm a big mountain biker, so I'm really looking forward to Suzanne Arley developments and things like that. So if I could wave a magical wand, I would say it would be really rad to have interconnectedness of trails and protected sidewalks to get to green spaces. Because to me, it feels weird to get in my car to go exercise somewhere.
My name is Abby. I am also a new ATC member. I live in the South Eugene neighborhood. And to wave my magic wand, I work in the Laurel Hill neighborhood. I would love a sound deadening wall between the end of Franklin and that giant nice path I have.
Hi, I'm Alan Hancock, and by he, him pronouns. I've been on the Active Transportation Committee. I'm gonna say this is my 11th year, so I've been around for a long time. So if you have questions of history, and I've been in Eugene for 35 years, so if you have questions about history, about technical details, past ATC, I'm a good person to ask. So is Sue over there, who's also been on the ATC many years. And it would be no surprise for those of you who know me that if I waved my magic wand, that I would see an underpass underneath the railroad tracks that would connect Alder Street and East 8th Avenue with Bascom River.
My name is Brad Aldy. I'm the Regional Safe Routes Coordinator for local school districts. That's important in my piece because I hope that all the work we do with all the young people, including teaching second, third graders how to be good pedestrians, and kindergarten and first graders how to ride bikes, and middle school students how to use bikes in transit, is all worthwhile, because we need to get less cars on the road and more kids actively moving around in their future. I live in kind of the Midtown area, about 16th and Pearl-ish, so not too far from here, and I've been a member of the committee for about a year.
My name is Peter Smith. I use he, him pronouns. I used to live in the far west neighborhood, but recently moved to the Fairmount neighborhood to study and get a master's program at the UO in urban planning. My preferred active transportation is walking and transit, but in Eugene, I find biking usually the most practical. And I haven't had a car since 2020, so it's been fun getting around like that. If I could wave my wand, I would make every bus route in this town run every 15 minutes. Our buses are not great.
Hi, my name's Ryan, new to the committee, he, him, and I live in the Cal Young area. I noticed that I'm one of the few north of the river.
That's why I was wooing.
Yeah, I would say I'm an active cyclist, both road cycling and commuting. So I think for me, a lot of connectivity of, we have so many great paths and connections, but there's often times where there's just not good ways to get from one to the other, and you have to kind of go in some precarious, dangerous areas. So that's what I would do.
I'm Angie. I use she, her, hers pronouns. And I think it's important to know, like Brett, I'm a student at the University of Oregon, studying transportation planning and all the stuff that we talk about, but I'm also in the student advocacy group for active transportation on campus called Live Move. I do a lot of work trying to network with transportation planning professionals in Eugene and in the broader Oregon context. And we also work on a lot of fun planning projects that we have been able to present to the city, which has been really fun, but we do street redesigns and just basically some radical, some not radical transportation things. But I live in the South University neighborhood, I think. I live right by South Eugene High School. But I used to live in the Harlow neighborhood. So we used to have better representation, I guess. And if I could, I ride my bike pretty regularly, especially since I moved from Harlow to South University. It's made me a more confident bike rider, definitely. But I also really love taking the bus. And if I could wave the magic wand, I would also make transit services more frequent. I do a lot of pet sitting, and it would be great if I didn't have to rely on my car to have a lot of clients as a source of income. So yeah. Also, if you need pet sitting, yeah.
I'm Bill, I'm an architect, and until October, when I mostly retired, I was probably primarily bicycling, then walking. And now I'm mostly walking, then bicycling. And haven't been on the bike a lot lately because it's just so easy to walk. I live in Jefferson West Side, 8 blocks from here. And I think if we're gonna vote on anything, Peter and Angie would, I'll put my vote in with them on the frequent transit. I think, we've done a lot of other things, I think pretty well. But I think the frequent transit would, I'd ride the bus a lot more if we had more frequent transit. It was just easier to make those connections. But then I also get to ride for free because I'm old.
Logan, go ahead.
You want me to? Okay, well,
I'm curious to hear what your choice is.
My name's Logan Tellis. As you know, I'm one of the city's transportation planners. I do a lot on our Vision Zero program, and I also do some planning for electric vehicle charging infrastructure. I've been with the city like about 5 years now. I live in West Eugene. My magic wand moment would be everyone stops driving impaired. I feel like that would be very impactful and solve all of our problems, but it would go a long way.
I'm Josh Caraco. Him. I live in Jefferson West Side. Also, I bike, walk, skateboard. I think there's some representation. I used to not have a car. And you can tell me if I'm cheating, but my comment for magic wands is always, I would make it so there's never more than one car travel lane in either direction anywhere within the city. Because I think that would make everything better for active transportation and save the most, save the most lives. Statistically speaking, we just know that would work, but that might be like 12 million things instead of just one. But anyway, also remember that when we're done, we should get Lucy.
Yes, thank you.
I'm Nancy. I live in the River Road neighborhood between River Road and the Bascom Greenway bike path. I bike for transportation and I walk a lot. And I like all of the things that other people changed, so I'll change something different. I would like to narrow travel lanes and add safe infrastructure so that the traffic goes the speed limit and that there is never an unprotected biking next to any car going 35 miles per hour.
Hi, I'm Ash or Ashley. Lived in Eugene about 5 years, came here from Seattle. And I bike and walk as much as I can. I love the biking infrastructure here. And looking forward to hoping to be part of improving it. If I could change one thing, it would be to have, I guess, a more vibrant downtown, or just more vibrant commercial centers and neighborhoods in general, just higher volume of pedestrian and bike traffic, and anything to do to encourage that kind of usage.
Hi, I'm Logan Page. I live in what I think is called Amazon neighborhood. And I'm a grad student at University of Oregon studying physics. And I get most places by bike. If I could wave the magic wand, I would get rid of animosity between drivers and non-drivers. I feel like there's a lot of hard feelings there that should cause problems. So, there we go.
Very good, thank you. And unmute Lucy for her to introduce herself. And sorry, Lucy, I can't hand you the wand, but you can wave whatever you can.
Can y'all hear me? All right. Awesome. Yeah. No, thanks for Charlie. Thanks for adding that fun element to our introductions. I do have a pencil, so I'll wave that in.
It'll work just as well.
Yeah, so hi everybody, I'm Lucy, and I moved to Eugene about 2.5 years ago by way of California, and also used to live in DC for almost a decade. I get around actively by riding my bike primarily. I also like to walk, and I've occasionally taken the bus since I live on one of those 15-minute bus routes, like the only one. But there should be more. And yeah, I've been on the Active Transportation Committee for 2 years now. I was co-chair last year and elected to stay on this year on the committee, but not as co-chair. Give someone else a chance for that. My neighborhood is the West Eugene, or the like Churchill neighborhood. So West Eugene. And if I could wave my magic wand, I would extend the Fern Ridge bike path to Veneta. And I would also connect it to the Amazon path more directly via like a bike trail that would go to South Eugene. So just making that one really long, nice, car-free way to get across town and connect another city to Eugene.
I've got a
So
plan for that, Lucy. You should talk.
cool, yeah,
Lucy,
yeah.
all right. Well, and thanks everyone. And according to my daughter, this is a working magic wand. So when we head outside after this meeting, things are gonna be radically different than they are right now. I appreciate everyone who's new, managing to construct a name tag of one kind or another mostly. And Brian, yours is a particularly innovative approach, which I think is highly functional. Because Willow was unexpectedly not here, she would have normally come with cardboard, with, I should say, our fancy, very fancy nameplates to be installed. And that will happen next time. So don't give up. You will be identified here. So we wanted to spend a few minutes just talking a little bit about where the committee's been over the past year, which, because Josh and I have only been on the committee for a year, that's all we can really speak to.
If that.
And then to kind of set the stage for where we're going in 2025. It's partly just for those of us who've already been here to kind of like, oh yeah, that's what we've been working on and that's where we left off. And partly for everyone who's new to be able to say, okay, now I understand at least a little better what I've gotten into and what some of the parameters are in terms of how this group works and where there are opportunities moving forward. And Logan, if you'd put up that PowerPoint slide, I'm gonna apologize and share it so that Lucy and Mary and others online can see it. And I apologize, I am partially colorblind. And so when I try to make something that is colorful, it usually is pretty bad. So I can't tell. Maybe Angie, could you hit the light switch just to make that a little more visible? And I'm going to just go quickly through this, and I'm going to invite the other people who were on the committee last year to pitch in, because this is really, basically one guy's idea of sort of the big picture of where we were, and each year we have a retreat where we spend some time talking about what we really like to spend our time on. And I was noticing, reading back through our notes from last year, that the things that people were really enthused about were actually kind of the places where we spent a lot of time. And so the things identified in this left-hand box as focus areas and themes of kind of the things that we worked on over the last year. It was certainly a year of protected bikeways. We spent a lot of time on protected bikeways, both those that got built or were being completed, like High Street, those that were in the design phase, like the Lincoln Street protected bikeway, and those that were just getting going as a thought, like the Oakway protected bikeway. The city did more, like working on Howard Street and 8th Avenue that we weren't so involved in. But it was definitely a year with a big focus on creating and figuring out how best to manage this new infrastructure. So that was one big area of focus in 2024. Another one, neighborhood greenways, was something that many people on the committee identified last year as a real interest. And neighborhood greenways, if you're not familiar with the lingo, is what the city uses to describe those streets that have traffic calming and traffic diversions and other mechanisms built in to make it a friendlier place for people walking and rolling to be. So Alder Street between 19th and 24th and really on to 30th is kind of a classic example. Broadway from downtown going west to Chambers is another example of where we have neighborhood greenways. And this is something we may have spent more time talking about than actually doing something about, though at the end of the year, we did send a letter to the city asking for them to rescind their policy about traffic diverters, because that seemed to have become an obstacle for actually using that mechanism as one way of helping to create neighborhood greenways. And the city's new complete street guidelines appeared to be a better way to provide better mechanisms for doing that. We talked a lot about the need to have a connected bicycle network, that our network of bicycle infrastructure, whether it's greenways or separated paths, multi-use paths, it's great, but it's not always connected to where you need to go or even to the individual segments. Alan brought up the problem of the Alder Street Greenway ending nicely there at Franklin Boulevard, where you can visualize that just across Franklin and the railroad tracks, there is the riverfront path that it would be nice to get to from there, but you can't immediately do it. Finishing those connections, giving ourselves a connected bicycle network is a major focus. And then something that started even before last year, and the committee kept working on it, was encouraging the city to develop a sidewalk strategy to repair and fill in all the broken and missing sidewalks, which is a bit of a crisis in Eugene. And that effort, this committee did some work in pushing some recommendations forward to the city, and eventually people from this committee, including Mary Christensen, who's on the line, it wasn't just her, but have actually kind of taken that all outside the committee and are working on it as an activist group and putting a lot of pressure on the city council to do something. And it's become a staff instruction that we need to come up with a sidewalk strategy. So there's progress lot of progress being made there. So if I, and again, I'll come back to the rest of the committee and ask you what you thought, but I did want to mention that the city staff bring us a lot of topics to get responses from, and I was trying to sort of roughly, outside of things that fell in these kind of major categories, what were some other key areas that we often get consulted on. Certainly one is safety, and you know, we've been involved in commenting on, for example, the problem with doing good detours when there's construction happening that interferes with cycling or walking routes. We had a big presentation on Division Avenue and the safety concerns there and what the city is planning to do about it. Things of that sort. Safety is something that is a frequent topic of discussion here and has certainly been really important to the committee. We often get approached to be asked about participation, or at least informed about public education events. October, May is Bike Month. The big Better Ways block party that happened downtown in the park blocks last May. It's not something the committee's ended up getting involved directly in, but that option's always hanging out there for us if we wanted to. Last year, the city put in an application to upgrade our status from a gold bicycle-friendly city to a platinum level bicycle-friendly city. That we may actually get to hear something about that later this month. Anyway, it seemed worth a note. And then a lot of the city staff takes the opportunity to come tell us about projects that are quite related to what we do, but maybe not directly on point, where we are able to give recommendations. When the city was working on their climate-friendly, equitable community decision last year, they came and chatted with us. The folks working on a new downtown transit route and service spent a couple of meetings with us chatting about that, because it's something that people who do active transportation, now obviously transit came up multiple times here as something of concern to those who care about active transit. And then lastly, I just wanted to make a couple of notes, which are kind of hard to read now as I'm looking at the screen, about some notable things about how the committee is organized and run. One is that last year we ran 2 subcommittees, one that dealt specifically with infrastructure and specifically and as a subcategory within there, the bond projects that the city is working on after the public passed a bond measure a couple of years ago, and there's a long list of these move huge projects that is an opportunity for us to weigh in on as the city moves to implement those. And then secondly, we had a sidewalk subcommittee, which maybe one we don't need to continue. That was certainly a conversation at the end of last year. So those subcommittees are something that we need to contemplate as we go into 2025, because a lot of the work that we do gets done in these committees to come back to the whole group to make a decision to move forward. Last year, we took at the retreat, we had a couple of big ideas for city staff that we requested, and I'm happy to say that we really made progress with both of those. One is we asked if ATC could be consulted on projects really early in the process as a new project was being developed. We were finding that oftentimes it seemed like the projects came to us after they were mostly designed. And wouldn't it be great if at the front end that we had a chance to provide some thoughts? And then secondly, there was an interest in doing more site visits with city staff to actually go out to places that the staff where staff are doing work or thinking about doing work and talking about it. And I would say the model for this was on the Oakway protected bike path, where both of these things, Catherine Rowan deserves a lot of credit here. She spent probably 2 hours out with us on bicycle last fall, pedaling from one end of the proposed protected bike path to the other, and off too, to look at connections to that potential bike path. It was a really great thing, but it was also right at the beginning of the project where there's not a starting design or anything. It was just at the point where ideas were getting thrown on the table, and so we were able to generate a long letter of recommendations that we provided to city staff as the project was getting going. So it seems like that's something we'd like to build on going forward. I'm told that, oftentimes city staff will come to us with just seeking feedback, and we'll talk among the committee and people, just give our opinions to city staff as they're sitting here in the room. We seem to have been making, from my understanding, increasing use of written communications when we really want to get a point across, and these subcommittees drafting up very specific letters to send off to city staff with our recommendations. And that's proven to be really effective as, really forcing us to hammer out what we want instead of giving a bunch of individual opinions, coming up with a collective opinion to share with the staff. And finally, just shout out to Willow and Peter for getting all of our documents into a shared drive where we can all access them. And we probably have not thought to share all that information with those of you who just joined the committee. But when Willow is back, we'll make sure that you have access to that drive where you can read all the notes and from previous meetings, where you can check in on the various letters that we've crafted to city staff in the past, and really browse to your heart's content. And I'll stop there. Sorry, that was a longer monologue than I intended to give. But for those of you who've been on the committee, Josh and anyone, is there anything you'd like to add to my effort to summarize all of 2024 in 10 minutes or less?
I think you actually did pretty well. I by the way of talking, if it's getting crowded, we usually just like do that. If you'd like to talk, I'd like to encourage that. It seems like we're a very responsible group, and barring like a lot of people wanting to talk, if you just start speaking and until this becomes a problem, I'd be okay with that.
Great.
And it seems like Alan had something to say.
Yeah, first of all, that's a great summary of what we did last year. One thing that I wanted to add, which is sort of related to the Active Transportation Committee, something that emerged in a fuller force last year, was the Better Eugene Springfield Transportation, which is a nonprofit organization in our region, established some advocacy groups for the first time. It was actually a little bit back in 2023, but it really got rolling last year. And so there are committees working on bicycling, sidewalks, and public education. And some of those people are part of the ATC, and some of the ATC is part of those groups. And so there's been more interchange between sort of this nonprofit realm and this government committee at the same time. So that's continuing to evolve to see how that partnership kind of works.
And many people here do both. I
Yeah.
know, and you'll see folks from the committee out participating in some of these other efforts. Anything else from those? Lucy, any thoughts?
Hey, sorry, took a while to get off mute. I think this is a really good representation of what we spoke about, and I really appreciate the summary to get everyone caught up to speed on like the actionable items that we can take to move things forward, or have our voices heard as part of the committee.
Great, thanks, Lucy.
Yeah, if I could add one more thing, there's kind of, two main types of topics we have. There's stuff where staff comes to us looking for our feedback, and then there are things that we initiate and kind of try to highlight to staff, like if there's anything that we think maybe should have more resources dedicated to it. So if you do have ideas of like something that you want to draft a letter to staff about, talking to the chairs is a great way to get that on the agenda, or talking about it in a subcommittee that's appropriate is another way to bring those ideas to the table.
great point. By Peter, I think, yeah, subcommittees are definitely gonna be a topic at the retreat, I think, likely, because that is, so that'll make more sense. I think, actually thinking about that, sometimes both happen too. I would just random example, but since Peter's mentioning this, we, like, our sidewalk committee was very much like initially initiated by people here, and there was a lot of pressure, and that's still been a conversation. But Jody also came to a subcommittee meeting to just ask our opinion on a presentation she was going to give to higher up staff, so that can sometimes feel like some of the most useful things you do when there's a good communication back and forth. We actually did great on time, thanks to Charlie.
There's another piece to this conversation. which
There
is
is,
over- Yes,
but we're still doing pretty good.
Yeah.
And I want
Thanks.
to acknowledge that. And I just wanted to say, just anyone who's new, if you have questions, not to be shy. There's, on any little thing, I will shut you up if I think it's gonna take too long. I think that's gonna be my main role here, because I think Charlie's doing a great job. So I was just gonna, anytime anyone has any questions, there's a lot of people like Alan who've been here forever too, so that there is a lot of. And sometimes we don't have the luxury of this much time too. Some meetings get really crowded and busy, so I think we wanted to try and leave that here. Along with the retreat, which we'll get to, so I just wanted to offer that.
Yeah, and it's a great time if anyone. Now that I've consulted the veteran members to see if anyone had something to add, does anyone have anything to ask? And then we'll talk a little bit about being ahead to this year.
On the sidewalk committee, was that mainly about, sidewalk repairs?
I believe so. I didn't sit on that, Peter. Yeah.
Yeah, our main focus was on sidewalk repairs. I think the city has a few programs running about sidewalk infill, like the bond measure. But that's where we really saw the big gap in the city's programs was sidewalk repair.
And it's something that, work started here, followed up by the activist groups outside of here that the city does now have. The city now has staff tasked with trying to figure out, what can we do? And it's, outside what, we advise, as all the new folks learned when you went to your orientation, we advise those city planning staff here. It doesn't prohibit you from doing things outside of here. And I know numbers of us have been not representing ATC, but on our own, going and testifying at city council, keep that pressure up. Peter was there just recently. I saw in a video I watched a couple of nights ago from a recent city council meeting. I went and testified on this sidewalk issue last summer. It's as did Lucy and I were there together. It's we all sometimes have multiple roles to play in the community.
It's really like repairs, complaints, and funding structures,
Yeah.
like was kind of the discussion piece.
I just have a hard time, I lip read a fair amount.
Oh, okay,
And I'd
sorry.
love to be able to see you.
Oh, we are about to switch to another slide though.
Oh, sorry.
But then we'll turn the lights on.
Oh, okay.
I'll try to keep it brief and then we'll turn it back on for you. Any other questions real quickly?
Yeah, I have a quick one. I was just curious if there's been much like traction or discussion on, just street lights in general, or lack thereof, or I just, as it's been dark at 5 o'clock, I've been thinking a lot about how it's really tricky to walk the pup or go on a run, and feel really safe or well lit, even if I have this stuff on. So just curious if that's been a topic of discussion.
I think related to paths, we've had more discussion. I don't think like regular streetlights have gotten some, for example, a bunch of street lights on the Fern Ridge path were literally stolen, copper from, or not copper, whatever. A metal, maybe this copper was stolen that like puts them out, and we'll explain that they've gotten some new ones that are solar, which, so they'd have to be stolen individually, which is gonna make it a lot cooler. But anyway, like regular street lighting in general has not been a huge topic, but it could be something to discuss later.
Sue?
I would just say there are a few street lighting projects included in the bond measure project. I know there's a section of River Road that will get street lighting.
It's limited, it's not a lot, but, it is something the city thinks about.
Yeah, it is something to, you know, if folks are interested in that, it is something that we could, you know, within our realm, because it certainly is important and has been important. It has been a topic of discussion, particularly related to the paths more than the streets.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. I wasn't sure if for some reason, just coming from cities that were a lot better lit, I wasn't sure if maybe, I know there's a lot of environmentalists in this region, and so like, obviously it impacts birds and things like that, so I wasn't sure, I know we're not like a dark sky city by any means, but if there was some historical background on that I didn't understand why there wasn't any streetlights in lots of neighborhoods.
Yeah, not that I'm.
Cool, thank you.
Um,
I think you should go to the next slide.
all right, let's, the one other poorly constructed slide here. Just again, looking forward to 2025. And I first wanted to mention, this is partly for the benefit of I guess everyone on the committee, is to remember what we left hanging at the end of last year, where we do have some outstanding communications with the city on topics that are really of interest to us. One is, as Alan brought up early on in this meeting, we sent them a letter about pursuing urban renewal funding and planning for an railroad underpass to get between Alder Street and the riverfront path. We did send at the end of the year a letter regarding the traffic diverter policy that we felt should be retracted, withdrawn. Our Oakway protected bike lane recommendations we sent, we're waiting for ultimately the next step in Oakway design. And then I just tacked on, even though we don't have anything exactly active, but you know, the bond projects keep coming, and it is something that is worth it for this committee, as we tried to last year, to pay attention and figure out what the active transportation components of those are. Some of them are specifically active transportation projects, but others are repaving projects where maybe there's something that can be done to also support the active transportation.
We also, sidewalks also, we were supposed to get some follow-up on.
Are we still waiting for? Oh, right, yes,
Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
You're right, we are waiting for feedback on, for additional responses relating to the sidewalk strategy.
But there was a time, we were
Yes.
going to wait.
Thank you for catching that, you're right. And we should figure out what that timeline was. And
I think they're on there. They sent us a response on that.
they did, but it was like in September, I think.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Anyway, we'll look it up. So that brings us to, so beyond those things that are kind of been left hanging from last year, there's what we want to do and what we're particularly interested in engaging the city on, in addition to the things that they want our feedback on. And so last year we had a great retreat. It was a meeting that was in same date slot as usual for active transportation committee, but a longer meeting. We met over at the library in a meeting room there, had food, and spent a lot of time talking about where we wanted to go. And out of that, I think that it seemed extremely valuable. As far as I know, we're tentatively planning to do it again, and it's a chance to figure out what our focus for 2025 will be, or our different places to focus. I posed some questions here that we can tackle at that retreat. And I really see that as the place where we'll be able to set our strategic direction for the year. So what do we want to focus on this year? What's city projects are pressing for 2025 and 2026 that either they or we would like to be involved in? Question we asked last year is, what do you want to learn more about? I think most of us come to this committee with an imperfect knowledge of how the city works on active transportation projects, and this is a great place to learn more. What subcommittees, things about how we work, like what subcommittees would be most effective, figuring out how we can best work together and what tools or resources we need in order to do our work well. These are, in essence, the same kind of questions we asked at last year's retreat. And I guess I would be curious here in just a few handful of minutes before we take a break to get ideas from the current committee as well as, or the last year's committee that knows what the retreat looked like, as well as the folks who've joined us, as to what you would like to see at that February retreat. And Connie, you can turn the light on now, or Andrew can. So any thoughts about retreat and how we can make good use of that time, and maybe of some of those who were there last year, and so how that went, or what could be better, or what you'd like to get out of it this coming year?
I still like doing this because then there's not the weird awkward like
Go ahead.
silence when everyone's trying to.
Yeah.
I just like a general comment about the retreat, I guess, is that I liked how at the beginning it was like us getting to know each other since I started last year in January. And it was nice to like get the foundational like understanding of each other and like being able to communicate comfortably like in a social setting, and then move to talking about transportation and policy and like what we want to talk about for the year to come. And I also like the like kind of like round table thing that we did, like moving around, and I think there were like different topics or like different like prompts that we answered. So something to lead the conversation that still leaves it open to like have your opinion be heard.
Yeah.
Just that, pretty much,
Oh,
and the
alright.
food, and the food was good.
The food was really good.
Yeah, yeah.
So same food.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah. Alan, go ahead.
I think it would be helpful to have a summary of what we did last year. So we can be reminded. I like the activities that we did. I'd be happy if we just did those again. So well done. I think one thing that'd be helpful is to have a follow-up 6 months later. So that'd be what, maybe August, to review what we did in February, what our goals were, because we didn't do that last year, and I'm having a hard time remembering exactly what they were and whether we actually accomplished them.
We actually did really well.
Yeah, well, we're really.
Right. No, I agree with you. Actually, it's good to check in.
I had some follow-ups on that actually, because I think one thing we're probably gonna work on is a little bit of organizing and stuff. I think Peter did a great job with the drive, but I think he was starting from a very hard place to start, I'm guessing. Like, I can't imagine what it was.
Yeah.
So, like, there are notes from that meeting,
Yeah.
but like, I don't blame you for not having found them or like looked through them. I actually, yeah, I've been going through some of the things in the drive. Charlie found stuff that I haven't looked at either. So there's a lot in there, and I think, yeah, one thing, when even we've talked about could be a potential subcommittee, is literally like helping organize us, so that it's easier for people to engage with. I found very valuable or invaluable materials in the retreat folder from last year. Willow has a cheat sheet document that just like teaches you most of what you need to know about active transportation that everyone should get a hold of probably. And it's like in the drive, but you wouldn't have to go. So I think that's probably some stuff we'll try and get to briefly, is just helping people find things and know where they are. And I think a follow-up's a great idea as well. But also just, yeah, retreat was like a 3-hour meeting with dinner and games, I think is kind of, so retreat might be overselling, but it's fun, more relaxed than this, more get to know each other.
We did talk about that with Willow, that retreat may oversell, like may give you an image that's beyond what it really is. We're not retreating for a full long weekend somewhere, and
It's not, I think it's
Catered
not
meals.
recorded, there's none of like this stuff. We're there for each other, but there's some.
Trust falls.
We didn't get there last year, but maybe this year we'll.
Do we have a date set for that?
So it would be the same, the usual meeting date
Usual
of this
meeting date,
meeting,
gotcha.
just plan on an extra hour before, hour later.
I think we split the difference and went 5 to 8, I
Yeah.
think was the general idea. And that's February 13th, I've looked at that date. And you'll know if for some reason that doesn't
Yeah,
happen.
I thought the retreat last year worked well too. I would just urge you, when you come out of the retreat, to try to have a plan for the subcommittees in place, because otherwise, in some past years, it's taken us like 6 months to really land on what subcommittees we had and who was gonna head them, and, and that's just, your terms are short. So I think the subcommittees really need to get up and moving quickly. So try to get that nailed down at the retreat if you can.
Thanks, so sense. Great feedback, thank you. Anything else? There's no obligation there to be something else. This is
Yeah.
helpful, and of course, feel free to let, Willow or Josh or me know if something else occurs to you that, oh yeah, we'd really like to do, like, this would be something that would be really helpful, whether you're new and you're feeling like, oh yeah, there's something else I really need to know, or whether it suddenly occurs to you you remember something from last year that it's like, yeah, I want to make sure we do that again. Or do it differently.
I think one of the things that I remember was sort of a review of the transportation system plan and the this and that plan and all those kinds of lingo. And so that I found that really helpful. So maybe some new folks would like to know some vocabulary, I guess.
Yeah,
May like to know some.
All right. Thanks, Brad.
That's all great, because anything that we're doing again, just be like, hey, Willow, we already did this, so you can, very easy to organize.
Right, easy to write.
And
Well, I tell you what, why don't we take a 5-minute?
let's vote on them,
break, or-
let's do the approving minutes from last meeting.
Oh, did I skip that?
Yeah.
Oh,
And then we'll take our vote.
oops, thanks for catching that. Is that not, where is that? Oh,
That's right.
oh,
right now,
it was number 5, yeah,
you put
all
it
right.
down. Okay.
Yes, motion to approve meeting notes from last meeting. Anyone care to make the motion?
I'll second.
Who motioned? Or you went?
I'm first doing this.
All right.
I think a chair's not supposed to make the motion.
No, I'm calling for the motion.
Motion,
Okay,
okay,
motion to
Peter
approve.
makes a motion. Women just wanna.
Second.
Thanks, Andy. Are there any corrections, comments? All in favor, raise your hand. Or thumbs up. That's good. That's right. They told us that, didn't they, in the orientation? Any opposed? Lucy, I can't see you. Like, if you are opposed, let us know.
I assume Lucy's thumbs up, but yell if you're not thumbs up, Lucy.
Thumbs up.
All right. Very good. So we'll take a 5-minute break. Actually, maybe like 6 minutes, and come back at 6:35. And Catherine Oran with the city transportation planning team we're dive into some actual substantive work, and she's going to tell us what they've learned about the 24th Avenue project and bikeway project and where that's at. So have at their time. We get a little container of very small treats that are over there. If you need that, restrooms or just out the door.
Combinations, 381, up on the board.
Oh, combination, yes, thanks. Thanks.
Step under your chair, and I don't know if it's yours.
It is mine,
thank you.
Got your pocket, thanks.
I just heard about the break on it.
How was your winter break?
Yeah.
Everything fun?
I'm tired.
Yeah.
I like it a lot.
Thank you.
I think describe it to me, but I don't think I've actually seen it.
They film.
Right.
So anyway,
It's also.
I'm moving back up here. They're good. Yeah. So everybody-
Yeah.
And it comes. No, yeah.
You guys are
And I lived in, yeah. Yeah, they're.
So we're waiting.
We're missing all
Yeah.
of that.
Oh,
Name tag. Wanting to make yourself known. I got I sent her something. I did after dinner and it came back. And she's out of the office on Monday, so I did have a hint to be with her. And, also telling her that, yeah, you know, we'll discuss I'm a little rusty. I'm a little rusty doing it in person, actually. I've done an awful lot of. Yeah, maybe my charity. All right, everyone, let's reconvene.
Oh, I was meeting on something. I know. Related also to how well lit the areas are. Like all that. Much like the sidewalks.
Grab your seats and let's talk 24.
Yeah.
Is that in school? Hi.
Yes, total design, it's 3 p.m. It's a plan for policy and management. Yes,
Okay.
but I'm actually planning for grad school, so PSU. And but I want to go to PSU.
And you will? You're gonna talk about what you're doing.
I've already taken so many different classes and then there's like.
Terrific, everyone. Well, thanks. So, having gotten your hour long of getting to know you and getting to know the committee, we'll now actually do some of the committee's work. And I mentioned that last year felt like the year of the protected bikeway because there were just so many protected bikeway projects that we were weighing in on and the city was working on. But the city wasn't done. So there's another one proposed for 24th Avenue. We did have one presentation about this last year, last October, maybe. I wasn't here for that meeting, I think. But Catherine Rohan, from the Transportation Planning Team is here to chat about it. Since we last met, there have been public meetings and lots of conversation and lots of written input in a survey, and looking forward to hearing
Yeah, well,
what we
thanks.
found out.
Thanks, Charlie. There has been a lot of input. And hello to all the new members. I feel like I should just come to the first of these meetings every year because there's so many new faces. It's nice to meet you guys. I'm Catherine. I've been with the city for almost 3 years, but I work on a lot of the infrastructure projects, so the walking and biking, doing the community engagement for some of that. Willow helps me out a lot in that regard. And kind of vetting the designs with the community, and then eventually that gets shuffled off to our engineering team. I also do a handful of, I write grants and stuff like that as well. But I'm here to talk about the 24th Avenue Protected Bike Lane project. This project has been moving very quickly, which you will learn is atypical for the city, but it means it's exciting, and I have a lot to share since we were last here. I know some people in this group took parking counts for us along 24th and the side streets. So if you're one of those people, thank you very much. If you're new, get excited because there may be more parking counts we need to collect later on. But let's get into the short presentation, and then there's time for Q&A at the end.
If you could make sure to share for Lucy.
Oh, yes.
Mary, if she wants.
Let's see.
Okay.
I think we are screen
Okay,
sharing,
good.
but good check. Okay. Introduction, this is the agenda. We can just kind of skip this. There's not actually 61 slides, just so you know. This is, yeah, kind of taken from another presentation, but here's our project area in orange along 24th Avenue from Amazon Path on the right to Agate Street, Amazon Path on the left to Agate Street on the right. So this runs in front of Roosevelt Middle School as well as the new YMCA. Kind of South Central Eugene. Right now, along this portion of 24th, there's buffered bike lanes, that's the purple. So that just paint and a buffer, and then standard bike lanes in the blue. Those are actually 5 foot wide bike lanes. We like to see 6 foot wide. And this project, as envisioned, would add protected bike lanes to that entire corridor from Amazon Path to Agate. One of the trade-offs there is removing the existing on-street parking that runs from Hilliard to Agate Street. Most of that's on the south side of 24th. There's a little bit on the north side. That was a quick project overview, but really what we're hoping to do is improve comfort for people that are biking on 24th, increase safety, and then improve connectivity too. Because 24th is such a critical bicycling connection with all the schools over there, as well as other destinations. And our recommendation for a protected bike lane comes from the city design standards, but also other guidance we look to, such as the Federal Highway Administration and NACTA, which is the National Association of City Transportation Officials. These are the acronyms that Brad referenced that you will all know in about a year. But on a street like 24th, which has a median speed of 27 miles per hour and over 6,000 cars a day, protected bike lane is the suggested facility if we're trying to appeal to that all ages and abilities group. So that means you have a 10-year-old who feels comfortable, and you also have a 70-year-old who feels comfortable. This is a bit of the project timeline. It's gone through a couple iterations, but the first iteration really came to the planning team in 2023. There's a paving project along a portion of 24th Avenue that was already planned. And anytime the city repaves a street, it's a good opportunity to think about the layout. We're taking up the paint. Are we going to put it back down in the same way it was before? So that's when the gears kind of started turning. we applied for an Oregon Department of Transportation grant to add bollards to that new painted buffered bike lane we envisioned. In 2024, we found out from Oregon Department of Transportation that our grant application had kind of advanced to the next stage. So it's looking good. We might get the money to do some of this. After we found that out in September of last year, Shane, Will, and I kind of hit the ground running with internal and external engagement, recognizing that if we want that paving project to take away that parking lane, we are going to need to get on the ground and get engagement now, because that paving project is on its own timeline. So that kind of kicked off in October 2024. And for new members, we do the external engagement with the community, but there's also a lot of city teams that we as staff need to connect with to get their input on the project. So that includes teams like fire and EMS, it includes parks and open space, it includes parking services, and most critically, it also includes our maintenance teams. So the teams that are out there occasionally getting into the storm sewer and cleaning stuff up, the teams that are out there picking up leaves and sweeping the streets. So a little more detail on that. And here we are in January 2025, where we're trying to make some decisions about this project moving forward. Oh, there, it's highlighted. Well, the internal and external engagement, which I'll touch on next, what we learned through this process. So we had a survey that went out, we got over 1,000 responses, which was amazing, and really a testament to all the connections Willow has garnered since she's been here. We found that the community is generally supportive of the project. Through our on-street parking counts, we determined that the side streets can accommodate the displaced parking demand if that parking is removed from 24th. Connecting with city maintenance and the community, we found out folks aren't a fan of those bollards, like the green and white ones that are on High Street that are kind of chunky. But even those white flex posts that are a little smaller, when those get hit, they tend not to look great. They can look out of place as well. Sometimes they look a little construction-y. And they get tagged. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. And so there's a preference for a lower curb-like element. We also, in talking with city staff, found that we could likely deliver this protected bike lane project outside of that Oregon Department of Transportation safety grant. That grant is very specific and kind of limits what elements we can and cannot use. So while it's great to get money from the state, sometimes it comes with stipulations that maybe don't align with community needs. And so kind of current staff recommendations, Willow, Shane, and I are drafting a report to leadership that'll be a lot more formal than these 3 bullets, but is to go ahead and remove that on-street parking along 24th, and then buffer those bike lanes with the paving project. So then we'll have a buffered bike lane from Amazon Path to Agate Street, just paint, but then we can come in later with a curb-like element and add that protection piece. This would mean forgoing that ODOT safety grant. So this is an example or a diagram of what 24th Avenue between Hilliard Street and Agate Street is like now. We have the parking on one side of the street, 2 5-foot wide bike lanes. They are indoor zones. If you're next to the parking, and then 2 10-foot wide travel lanes. The paved width here is 36 feet. That's not something that we're addressing with this project.
Parking is only 6 feet wide.
It is. Standard parking lanes are 7 feet wide. So everyone is very close here. And then this is what the proposed design would look like. So those bike lanes are now 6 feet wide. There's a 2-foot wide buffer between the bike lane and the car lane. And then there's a low curb-like element, as we've been calling it, in that buffered space. And this is the curb-like element that we think we're most interested in. A company called Zikla makes these Zikla zebras. Sometimes you also see them referred to as armadillos, but they're kind of these low, rounded elements. They come in different colors as well as 3 different sizes. So the size and the spacing and the orientation of these would still need to be determined. Obviously, we would pull them back so people can get in and out of their driveways and make them turn onto side streets. We think these would work well for 24th because the leaf vacuum truck and the Vector truck can straddle these to get curbside and pick up those leaves or get in the storm drains and clean them out. And the smaller street sweeper can still fit between the curb and the zebra.
Garbage trucks?
Garbage trucks, I have a slide about that. It's a great. No, you're ahead of me, which is great. In addition to those zebras, we're also interested in adding a green cross bike across 24th at Alder. This is a picture of another cross bike at Chambers and 12th. Cross bike, crosswalk, one's for people walking, one's for people biking. This is mostly just a paint and post project, so there's not a lot we can do to improve some of these intersections, but this feels like it's on the table. So adding that to Alder. And then also adding green paint through the bike lane at that intersection with Hilliard. So this is 24th and Patterson, a very nearby example. And that would be both the north and south bike lanes as they run east-west across Hilliard. And trash cans. Shane Willow and I were able to talk with Royal Refuse, Sandy Pack, and we have a meeting with Apex coming up. But our ideal is that the trash cans stay on the planting strip and the truck arms reach across that buffered protected bike lane as well as the bike lane to grab those trash cans. Sandy Pack is able to do that. They have, their arm can go up to 10 feet, which is great. Apex has not been as collaborative with us, I'll say, in working through some of these challenges. So still to be determined on how that goes. There could be a situation in which they also straddle the Zikla zebras. But it's been challenging. We did think about, well, we have this buffered space. Could the cans be placed in the buffer space? And ultimately, Shane Willow and I wanted to steer away from that because that's a really narrow space. People aren't great at placing their cans. If that tips over, it's gonna be a mess and it could really be dangerous for folks too, especially when the bike space is only 6 feet wide.
Also, cars are gonna hit it if it's there.
Also, cars might hit it, yes.
Yeah.
So our ideal is to have them on the planting strip, just behind the curb. I will note, there are a lot of design limitations here. It's a low budget project. So we're not moving the curbs, which means that buffered bike lane and protection is gonna just revert back to a standard bike lane as we approach the Hilliard intersection, because we do pick up vehicle turn lanes there instead. There's also a couple curb bumped outs along 24th where there's no parking either, and we're not moving those curb bump outs, so the bike lanes will be standard with there. There's no paving west of Hare Street. I know that some of the pavement here is not fun to ride a bike on. This isn't something we're able to address with this project, unfortunately. I've gotten questions about, can we add, flashing lights, RRFBs, those yellow flashers at crossings and intersections, again, out of project scope. And then right now there's no changes to the Amazon path crossing planned. Sorry to end on this slide. That's kind of a bummer slide. Like, let me tell you all the things people have
Spent
asked
time
that we
talking
can't.
about that specifically.
Yeah.
So let's also know.
Yeah, but upcoming, so January, hoping to share that staff recommendation with leadership and get their buy-in. January or February, looking to publish that community engagement report I mentioned we got a lot of survey responses. We also had a community meeting, lots of internal meetings and other email correspondence. So that'll all be summarized and shared out with the community. It's a lot of responses to go through, so it might take a while. We'll have a second community meeting to share results and the design. That'll likely be in February. Date is to be determined. March or so, staff have to write an administrative order to remove on-street parking. This comes with any project where parking needs to be removed. And then May to September is when we expect that paving project to happen. That's from Harris to Agate. And that'll remove the parking and add the buffered bike lanes. And then we're able to come in later with those zebras or any other kind of material we think is a good fit, and install those. And that's the end of this presentation. So questions, comments?
Here.
Peter?
You mentioned not being able to change the Amazon path on 24th. I know normally you don't put like protected barriers like at intersections so people can turn, but because there already is that ramp for left turns, like, would you be able to add the protection all the way up into that crosswalk to really visually narrow like the lane for drivers? Like if you can go back to that.
Let's go back to that picture, yeah.
Yeah, like I imagine
like-
if there's protection elements in that buffer, that could visually narrow the lane for cars and potentially make people yield better at the crosswalk. Because, yeah, left turning bikes wouldn't need gaps in the protection because left turning bikes can hop up. on
You
the-
can, yeah, and kind of make a wider turn. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's definitely possible. And it would, you're right, narrow the cars through there, or how your driver experience if you're driving.
Yeah.
I don't have a piece of.
You can.
Abby?
You all can use.
Abby, and then we'll get.
Trash cans and garbage trucks on 24th. As someone that commutes there in the morning, my only concern is getting around the garbage trucks when they would need to stop.
Mhm.
Is there a lot of connectivity to the sidewalks, or what would be the solution
Yeah.
there?
So Shane and I did observe garbage pickup one day there. And at least it was for Sandy Pack, we observed it. And when Sandy Pack picked up, let me know if you have experienced something else riding there. They didn't hit 24th like all in a row. They would kind of zigzag back through the side streets. And so I saw, plenty of opportunities to pass when they turned onto a side street. Their routes might change, maybe Apex does it differently.
I also fairly quick. I'm
Okay.
just, disaster
Yeah.
scenarioing.
Have you run into issues with trash trucks on 24th before?
Just with cars behind them also wanting to pass.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Ash, Logan, and Nancy.
Yeah, I was
And
just
let's
curious,
make sure
on the
it's
website about this project, one of the proposed options was like, it's the elevated concrete strip. Now, I was just curious about the relative advantages and disadvantages of that versus these zebra things.
Yeah, I don't think we ever considered a concrete, like what's on 13th.
I mean, it was just the
For
examples of different types of.
Oh, for a
protection.
picture
Yeah,
showing the different examples. We did have a picture online showing like a standard bike lane, a buffered bike lane, a bollard protected bike lane, and a curb protected bike lane. I think that's what you're referring to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Curb protected bike lanes, like what's on 13th, I think they look a little better. So visually, if we're talking about like pros and cons, they tend to be, a little more aesthetic. But because they are poured in place, once they're there, if you need to adjust something for, like, say, an ambulance can't get around one and has to hop it, and then it gets broken, and et cetera, that's a little harder to do. Yeah, that's what comes to mind initially as like a pro and a con between the two. Does that answer your question?
I was just curious, I was also just curious about safety, like, I don't know if there's a lot of data out on those zebra things, or like just where they rank between like flex posts and the concrete curb thing.
I would say they're more similar to a curb than a flex post. Because the flex posts are very easy to run over. I think when you hit a curb or something like the zebras, which I can just go back up to so we can look at them. I think cars are a little more inclined to not continue in the direction they were going.
Hmm.
But I don't know of any specific surveys or studies. I think it.
Logan and
Logan.
Nancy. Yes.
So I know this is tied to like an existing maintenance project, but is there a specific reason that it was chosen to end at Amazon rather than like one block farther at Willamette?
Yes, in the original grant we put in with ODOT, we did have it going all the way to Willamette. And that block of 24th between Willamette and Amazon Parkway, there aren't side streets there with available on-street parking. And so my assumption is that if we're trying to get to yes with community members about removing the parking, it's going to be really hard to do there. And we're probably going to need to make some concessions, such as building parking bays and other things that are expensive and pricey.
Okay.
And so that is why we decided to condense the extent. It is something that I think we should evaluate in the future, but I don't have a date for it. Yeah, that's a really good question, and I've gotten it before. Yeah.
Well,
You said Nancy.
I was a little bit covered by other people, but just to make sure I understand, so that final block, it's going to be not buffered.
The block between Willamette and Amazon is gonna stay as it is, which is just a standard bike lane right now.
Yeah, and I would just wonder if there was anything, since you said no to the concrete, if there was anything else besides these zebras that was a low, visually lower and sturdier than bollards. Or how did you get to this one as the one you recommend?
Yeah. So the Zika zebras are something that the city's been interested in trying out for a while. So it's kind of an opportunity to test something new. There's also a product called Tough Curb, which we could use. I think it's tends to be a little lower and longer. These are, as you can tell, are very modular. So you can really place them however and at whatever orientation as well. We may not end up using the Zika zebras in the final project. It could be something like Tough Curb, or sometimes you see even like concrete parking blocks out there. Like what you see in parking lots to keep the cars from rolling forward. Yeah. If you see something else you think could work in the space that you really like, please share it with staff, because we're always looking for examples from other cities as well.
We have one more question here and then one down, yeah.
Okay.
Is there a date on when the section from Harris to Hilliard would be reconsidered for repaving?
From Harris to Hilliard, just repaving?
Or the Alder intersection?
I do not know if there's a date for that. We could look on kind of like what's planned with the latest bond measure and see if that section is in there.
Bill.
Okay, yeah, I don't have a name tag, sorry. I think what's attractive to me about at least an intermittent low thing like this is I don't think a car is going to intentionally drive over that. They might only do it once. Kind of like hitting the raised crosswalk at 13th and Lincoln. They only go past me that. And also my observation with the continuous concrete curb along 13th especially, is that continuous curb, I think, tends to, my observation is that it collects debris and leaves worse than something like this might, even in the times where they're not out picking up leaves and sweeping. So I think this overall concept I like better than a continuous curb. And I think it's a lot more attractive than the bollards.
Alan.
Oh, Alan, oh, sorry.
I know that both the ATC and the Cycle of Change bicycling group were really looking at that intersection of 24th and Alder to improve that crossing, and some of us had recommended the idea of a stop sign on 24th. And I'm just wondering, doesn't sound like that is included in the design. Talk about that.
Yeah. So a stop sign for 24th at Alder.
Correct.
Is that what you're suggesting? You're right. I haven't considered that. I don't know if it was brought up to other staff. it would, we need to get traffic operations out there to do a stop sign warrant. I'm doubtful they would put a stop sign so close to a signalized intersection. And that the amount of cross traffic would warrant a stop sign. So we could look into it, but I am doubtful that that's something that would be recommended.
Stop sign at university might be an alternative. You also do that whole.
Ryan?
Kind of going off of Bill's comments on, one of the things that I was looking at that I kind of liked about these zebras is like on 13th with the continuous curb, some, and some of the other, bollards stuff. When you're riding along, you kind of feel trapped as a cyclist. Like if there's something wrong in the bike lane, you have nowhere to go.
Right.
And one thing I was noticing about these is like, at least in this orientation, that if there's something in the roadway that's an obstacle, that it gives the cyclist the opportunity to get out, which I really liked.
So clarification first and then a couple of questions. The clarification is, and you may have said this, I'm sorry if I missed it, but so there'll be, on your recommendation, there'll be no change to the buffered bike lane west of Hilliard to Amazon Path. And would the zebras go there?
So the idea is to have the zebras from Amazon Path all the way to Agate. It's a little easier between Amazon Path and Hilliard because that's already a buffered bike lane.
Yeah.
It's like the space is there and you would just put them in. Mhm.
And I know you, two more quick things. I know that you haven't completed looking through your all the public feedback you got from the survey and everything, but is your sense that other than the people losing their parking, that the objections that were voiced were mainly to bollards as opposed to any other part of this
So
concept?
I did go through the survey briefly before coming to get some numbers, which I can go over if you want. And in the survey, we did ask about people's relation to 24th. Do you live on 24th between Hilliard and Agate? Do you live a block north or south along that same thing? But most of what I read about people who are like, yes to bikes, no to this project is the bollards. Or they felt that 23rd, 1 Street North and 25th, 1 Street South are like very acceptable bike routes. So if those work, let's leave 24th alone. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, it does. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was just curious. I do think the high street bollards have really, like now, when you say bollard, that's what everyone thinks of, and no one likes those because they're ugly. And I realized they were put in because it's in a way, a temporary structure because there was, the street's gonna be repaved and they didn't have to rip out really nice bollards, to replace them later. But it has kind of seems to have poisoned the well on bollards in Eugene, I'm afraid.
Yes.
The last question regarding where is the funding for the zebras come from? As you know, we occasionally in this committee hatch great ideas that just need a little bit of funding.
Yeah.
And are usually told, well, there's no funding for that. But how do you get the funding to get the zebras?
This is important, and I think it makes this project really interesting because it's really scrappy in some ways. We have a pot of quick build funding to buy temporary materials. And this is a grant that originally Lane Council of Governments had and then got funneled to the city. So there's a pot of money there we can use to procure the materials. It kind of works like a gift card. What's interesting is we can't use those quick build funds to pay for installation of anything. We can only buy things. So we would have to use local funds to pay to install these zebras. And there's a couple little pots that we can use locally to do that. There's some leverage funding that was built into the last street bond that's not assigned to any particular project, kind of for things like this. There's also a traffic operations improvement fund, I think that's what it's called, that we could also tap to install these.
Do they come in any colors besides that color?
Yes, so the bases,
Can you get a green and yellow one and have the university?
well, the bases are always black, but the retro reflective kind of stripes come in different colors. I think there's a white, a yellow, a red. I don't know if there's a green. I suspect we would go with white,
Yeah.
but I could be mistaken. Something I would like to hear from this group is these zebras do come in 3 different heights, ranging from like 2 inches to I think like 5.5. And some concerns that I have heard about the like continuous curbs on 13th is, you know, bike riders sometimes will hit those, and those elements in and to themselves can be dangerous. Which I think you could see that as, well, maybe we should go with a lower version of the zebras. But the lower versions are perhaps not as big of a deterrent to vehicles. So I don't know, does this group have thoughts on heights? Maybe we get a couple and test them out.
Yeah, this is separate though. Yeah.
I think, or I guess like, as a younger able-bodied rider, I'd rather hit the buffer rather than like maybe accidentally going over it into the lane. But I can definitely see the other perspective of like maybe hitting it would cause you to lose your balance and become a separate thing. But yeah, what are off the top of your head, do you know like what the sizes of like the curves on 8th and 13th and?
I think 13th is a 4-inch curb and there might be a little bevel. But 13th is a 2-way bikeway, so there's a lot of space, whereas this will be 6 feet. So it'll feel a little more narrow. It is a little more narrow.
And it is only one way, because they're on each.
Correct.
What is the recommended spacing on these? And yeah, that's an element I'm trying to consider when like thinking about height. How far apart from each other would they be?
So Zikla does have like an installation guide and there's recommended spacing. I think it's anywhere from like 4 to 8. You know, we can choose something like that or something different.
Yeah,
We'd probably be within their recommended range, I imagine.
yeah. Well, I'm thinking just a mid-size between 5 and 2. Large enough to know, but for me, a visual signal, if I hit that, I would fall off my bike, and then a car hit it, they would have not a great time with their wheels, so somewhere in that mid-range where it's a visual danger.
Catherine, we've kept you later than you were excited to say. Do you have another couple of minutes? Because I think there are a couple other questions, but we can let you go.
No, I do, and we should probably check online too to see if there's questions there.
You had a question back there.
Yeah, I was gonna get all the committee members.
Yeah, we
in
don't
first,
know
so I was gonna get
unless,
that, yeah.
and Peter had wanted something earlier.
I want to clarify something. We'll imagine that this is our 6-foot one, right? So at this point, if I remember correctly, it is illegal. You can get a parking ticket if you park in the bike lane. Is anyone clear on that, Alan or Sue? It's illegal to park a vehicle in a bike lane. So again, we're going to be blocking all of these people's access to their houses. There's no alley behind there. So when they move their moving van in there, or when they have a service vehicle to access their, what is the legal status?
It's only gonna be one lane, because the.
I know, I'm just using this as an illustration, but I'm just saying, you know, it's gonna happen, I'm sure, that they're gonna put up, you know, so what is the legal status for people who are trying to access their house now that they don't have a parking thing? In terms of using a service van or any kind of vehicle in the front.
They park it on the other direction. I think
So moving vans are a great example, but as are like Amazon delivery truck,
That's
or
like
like
your
your
service
plumber
vehicle.
has to
Yeah, the
come.
plumber, exactly, or
Yeah.
the people with the steam thingy or whatever, right?
So if those vehicles are servicing a house, they'll have to park in the driveway, right, or around the corner. So just like any of our other streets that have bike lanes or protected bike lanes without parking, it'd be a similar situation.
Mhm.
On that note,
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I noticed the city is always talking about flexible bollards and not regular bollards. And there's some really pretty bollards in downtown and on the university campus that has like lights built into them and stuff. Like, is there a reason why those things are not considered? Is it like, does the fireman not like it or?
Our traffic operations folks are against putting anything like metal. Like if you hit one of those, even, if you're an experienced driver, an experienced bicyclist, they're not very forgiving. And I think we're trying to make forgiving designs.
But do we want forgiving designs when it would hit a person?
That's a
Like-
great question.
Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, are we gonna
Like-
scratch a car or are we gonna protect the vulnerable street user?
Yeah.
Didn't they just like, something in Portland, they had like concrete, like planters a lot for like traffic calming. And they were like, they like pulled back because people were hitting them. And they were doing their job,
Yeah.
maybe. Like, oh, it worked, just kidding, we're taking it back.
I think that could be a great topic for maybe
Yeah,
for a
that might-
retreat.
Yeah.
Or like to gather more information on the history of why the city is pulled back from those
Let's
things.
check something really. Willow told you nothing about the protected bikeway survey.
Willow did not give me anything to
That's
share
what-
about the
great.
next topic.
Okay, perfect. Then we have just.
Yeah, no,
totally
we're not
fine.
doing that, yeah.
No, I was just gonna make sure. Tom.
Logan did it.
all right, on the topic of parking. If somebody's trying to turn like across this to get into their driveway or parking spot. Does this allow a car to like turn across it? How do you?
Yeah, so near intersections and driveways, it would just be buffered and you wouldn't have those protection
There'd be a
pieces
gap
in there.
zebras then?
Yeah.
Okay.
So just like on 13th, there's gaps for alleys and driveways. It would work the same way. Mhm.
Thanks.
Then I have just one last question, which is, so the folks who suggested using 23rd and 25th, why do we need 24th? How do you answer them?
My answer is, let's zoom out and look at the bigger bike network, because a network is only as good as, the pieces that are there. And 24th is one of the few streets that goes east-west across Amazon Creek. And additionally, if you're really trying to get somewhere, you don't want to be zigzagging through all these streets. You want to go, you want to use 24th because same reason people driving want to use 24th. It gets you to the places you're trying to go and connects to those places too. So for some people, 23rd and 25th work great, but if you're trying to get over to Amazon Path or to Willamette, you're gonna need to use 24th. And there's no reason we can't have both, and we shouldn't have both. Redundancy in the network is great. It allows for options and you can choose what feels most comfortable. But yeah, why not? Why not both?
Well, thanks. Any last questions for Catherine?
I had noticed earlier in the meeting that there was a reference that some parking counts would still be needed. How could a citizen get involved with that?
So I don't think we need any more for 24th. But for other projects where we are looking at removing parking, having those parking counts can be very useful. We asked the ATC to do some parking counts on Oakway as well. That was very easy because there were like no cars parked there ever. One or two, I shouldn't say that, there were one or two. I'm trying to think of upcoming projects where parking counts could be useful. And none are coming to mind. Oh, Grove Street, yes. Parking counts on Grove Street might be something.
You will definitely get asked to do parking counts if they need them. That is like the kind of thing ATC will get asked to do.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
great.
thank you, Abby.
All right.
Okay.
Well, thanks so much for this very extensive trip through the thing.
Yes.
Really helpful and I can say a lot of good thoughts.
Well,
Got
thank,
into it as usual.
thank you all for your input. And again, it's great to meet all you new members. I'm excited to see what happens this year.
Thank you, Catherine. Thanks.
So as Josh was mentioning, there was another item on the agenda that was supposed to start at 7:05, but it was Willow's item, and since she's not here, there's no one really here to cover it. And so we kind of scooted on past and just talked 24th more since there were so many good questions from everyone.
Which makes perfect sense.
So this brings us down to just project updates, information share. We actually already covered the ATC retreat, so that one's taken care of. BPAC share out. You're no longer, you're gone, yeah.
No, we
Did
don't have a
anyone, did any
BPAC.
of our folks go to their meetings?
So
Okay.
didn't, but I wanted to bring that up
Okay.
because,
I can do it again.
No, yeah. Peter
never
can do it
mind,
again,
I
yeah.
don't need to do that.
Yeah,
Peter
Peter's
and I
schedule's
will
changed.
continue, but
Yeah.
we had a time.
Unless either of you wants to quit and we can discuss if a new member is interested, but
If someone is interested, I am kind of doing it out of obligation right now, but, it is, yeah.
Do you want to explain what
Yeah,
it is?
we have
I
new
didn't
members
know
now.
the acronym.
Yes, I know I just sold it really well right now. There is another organization, BPAC, which is the same thing, but for Springfield. And so we try to talk to each other about what projects are being done in either city, because our cities work together a lot, and a lot of people travel between them. So if anyone is interested in attending their meetings, so because they meet every other month and we switch off every other meeting, it would only be 3 meetings for the whole year that you would be going to. So if anyone is interested.
Is that all there were? Cause I think we missed a few, maybe we didn't because there wasn't.
Yeah,
Anyway,
anyway, if anyone's interested,
What day and time?
they are Tuesday nights,
on the even numbered months,
even numbers.
so February.
Yeah.
April.
And
They are hybrid also. I used to be on BPAC, so you could just zoom in, but if you go in person, it's at the Springfield City Hall, which is just over the river, very close to.
which Tuesday is it?
Second.
The second Tuesday, yeah. So I can take over it for now, but if anyone is interested in attending Springfield's BPAC meetings.
if you're willing
let
to
me
do
know.
at least between now and the retreat, and maybe we can give
Yeah, yeah.
everyone a chance to contemplate, we can just make that part of the committee assignments at the retreat in some way.
Sure.
Yeah, we can figure out who's doing the February, well, their retreat is in February, so, yeah.
Mhm.
We can figure that out.
Things to think about.
Yes.
Like, if you want to, if you're itching to get involved and see what they do in Springfield.
And as Rachel said, she used to be BPAC and she lived in Springfield, and represented BPAC here, but then she moved to Eugene, so now she can't do that anymore. She now is the university's active transportation coordinator, right? Do you want a spot on the agenda to be like the university liaison to this group? Is this gonna be a regular thing?
I mean, I will keep attending these meetings and I do think it would be fantastic. We could maybe ask Willow or confirm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should see
But
sometimes.
I think that would be a fantastic role. I'd love to sort of be a liaison to the university. Yeah, and some of you have talked to me as I've been here over the months about like your own experiences near and on the university, and that's been really helpful to have your comments about that experience. But yeah, my name's Rachel Blazer. I'm the active transportation coordinator for the University of Oregon, and I've been there a year. So still learning a lot, but I do a lot of the programming and outreach at the.
Particularly if you're planning to be here anyway, and really, I mean, the university is like Springfield in a sense, it's another entity doing its own transportation planning, and you know, why wouldn't we have that conversation if it's like 5 minutes at the end of the meeting, so.
Yeah, I think that would be great. Yeah, maybe I can reach out to Willow.
Yeah, I'll talk to Willow too, unless, does anyone on the committee have thoughts on that? We do regular, yeah, it's good.
I think it's a
We have
good idea.
several
Only-
university connections here now, like three students, which is big for this committee, I think, so.
Also, kind of have a thought off of that, like, because sometimes we have people come present to us, not to like volunteer to do something, but I've been talking with you and the transportation services team with LiveMove, and the plan that you guys are working on
Yes.
is very interesting.
Yeah.
And I think that could be something interesting to possibly have as an agenda item in the future. Maybe.
Absolutely. Yes. The U of O has a very outdated transportation plan for the university, and so it's being revised. And yes, Angie and LiveMove have been some of the groups involved in the focus, like feedback and the stakeholders meetings. So we've been just doing existing conditions so far. I'm not personally super involved. We have a transportation planner and some other members who are really taking the lead on that. But I think that's a great idea to have maybe Paul, our transportation planner, come and talk a little bit more, especially as we're getting into the future conditions and some feedback on those elements.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Hey, thanks for the idea. That's
Yes.
actually a really good one. All right. Last item here, subcommittee report backs. I don't believe the subcommittees met over the holidays, so
We don't have it either.
we won't have subcommittee meetings probably until after the retreat, is my guess. 'Cause I'm not sure, unless, Alan, do you feel we need an infrastructure committee or anyone else on the infrastructure committee?
Thanks.
You have the most pressing project in that committee, but it's, all right. So we're at the conclusion of the meeting. We're actually finishing early, which is.
Well, we nixed an item.
Yeah, we did next time.
We have no committee, subcommittees.
But it does also give us a chance, just, I'll just invite, any of the new members who joined us, if you have any thoughts or, about your attendance here, or any last questions before we break for the day that would make all this.
Either one's good.
Make more sense, or just any confusion about, is this what you expected? You would be doing?
So it's.
No?
Backtrack a second, you just asked me a question about infrastructure, and I actually think that the conversation about 24th Avenue and the crossing at Alder Street might be something that the infrastructure committee might want to weigh in on before the city makes a final decision about that.
Okay, so maybe try and have an infrastructure committee meeting at a usual time, which is 2 weeks from now.
Really do have a regular.
Yeah.
It's usually same evening. Our chair is left, so.
I keep looking at this.
We'll have to, maybe Alan, I can have you be temporary chair and
Of the subcommittee.
organize
All
that.
right,
It's-
so it is.
Yeah,
We still have a few of us on that committee.
yes, and we can advertise it to everyone.
Yeah.
So anyone in the room can, all right.
So just say, if any of you are interested in getting involved in the Cycle of Change, which is a similar group, but more of an advocacy role, organized under Better Eugene Sprinkler Transportation, please come on board. We'd love to have more people involved. You can sign up, just on the BEST, website. There's BEST is Better Eugene Sprinkler Transportation, and somewhere on there, there'll be a chance to, yes, I'm interested, and you can get on the email list.
And then you'll be getting like 40,000 different emails from different.
You can unsubscribe if you want.
No, I filter them to a folder. That's my solution. I know.
Okay, well, I think 5 minutes early, we're gonna call it good. Thanks so much, everyone, for being here. Wonderful meeting, thanks for participating, and thanks to all the new people for jumping right in and asking questions and being a part of the conversation.
Thank you, Charlie.
Yeah.
It's out.
Faculty.